Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 4 of Catalunya. Now it's a summit finish, the last climb on today's stage. 13 kilometers long, 6%. So we know all the action is certainly going to be packed at the finish of today's stage. When the racing comes on, we know that Simon Yates didn't start, so he's out sick. Now I had some comments last night and they asked me about when I was racing, have I seen so much sickness throughout the peloton? I remember at Tour of California, I was riding for Astana, and the flu went through Tour of California, and lots of guys were getting sick. I was racing with a fever, sweat in the bed, trying to race my bike each day and just get through the stage and hope that things got better. Luckily for me that year at Tour of California, I was riding for different leaders on the team, so I just had to get through the stages and help out where I could, versus guys, when we're talking about Simon Yates, coming here from Paris-Nice with such spectacular form, and then getting sick. That's a devastating blow. So Bike Exchange winning stage 1 and then Simon Yates dropping out here too is another definition of how sports can just absolutely change and go catastrophic or fantastic. Either way, you can flip the roles from super, winning stage 1, winning stage 2, getting dropped on stage 3. Now Simon Yates is out. And remember, depending on how sick he is, Simon Yates has the Giro d'Italia coming up. So being sick here could affect his form at the Giro d'Italia, when just back at the end of Paris-Nice on stage 8, we were believing that Simon Yates is the big hitter to win the Giro d'Italia. Now, of course, there's still enough time to fix any sickness problems before the Giro, depending on how bad it is. So when we look at the peloton just being throughout each stage of races, Paris-Nice, a little bit in Trino Adriatico, Milan-San Remo, people missing, and then of course here at Catalunya, I have never seen it throughout my professional career just the sickness go anyways from one race to the next race to the next race to the next race like we have here in 2022. Clearly there's a heavy bug going around that's affecting the whole peloton. Now when the racing comes on, there's a break of 7 up the road, and Marc Soler from UAE Team Emirates is up there, and he's only 33 seconds down on the general classification. Jesus Herrada from Cofidis is there at 52 seconds. Hugh Carthy at 1 minute and 12 from EF Education. Juan Lopez from Trek is represented. Mark Donovan from DSM. Now, DSM have not missed an attack throughout this Catalunya. They've had the race leader's jersey and every other jersey possible here at Catalunya, and they have been active throughout all the breakaways on each of the stages here at Vuelta a Catalunya. Fantastic tactic from DSM, because we know even the earlier stages that when they lose the race leader's jersey, there wasn't much of a chance back there for Wittenberg to hold on to it. So again, DSM always being aggressive, much like we watched last year at Tour of Spain. So they're representing the break with Mark Donovan. Besides Donovan, we have Bruno Armar from FDJ and Mikel Biscarra from Escatel Escadi. He's back in the break again. The rider, he is always in the break. It's exciting to see Biscarra because he's always trying to be up there and win a stage. It's not going to happen today, of course, but it's exciting to see him up on the road. Now, at 52 kilometers, they start going up the second climb of today's race, and this is what I see as strange about Marc Soler. When you're UAE Team Emirates, first off, I wouldn't have put him in the break, because at a 13-kilometer summit climb coming at the end of this stage, and all 4 riders, George Bennett, Marc Soler, of course Almeida, and then Ayuso, all high up on general classification, having 4 strong guys at the end of this stage could do some magic wonders with team tactics, being able to attack 1, 2, 3 at a time. Or very important, if one of the riders out of that group of 4 stands up at the meeting and says, hey, I'm fabulous, I can win this stage, let's just drill it at the bottom, I'll drop everyone and I'll solo to the top. If you have that kind of chemistry, you could have 3 fantastic climbers at the end of today's stage with 13 kilometers to go. Instead, they're going to put Marc Soler in that group of 7. That I thought was strange, but then on top of that, Soler's playing a little bit of tricks at the back of the group of the breakaway companions, and you see the chemistry is getting a little messed up. At this point in time, if you got Marc Soler in that group, I say just drill it and try to get as much time as you can on the peloton behind, so you can put pressure on all the other teams that want to race for general classification here. Behind Chasen in the peloton, we see it's AG2R, and they're doing a fabulous job. AG2R, from what I saw from when the cameras come on around 70 kilometers ago, all the way to just about the start of the last climb. Looked fantastic, but then they will fall apart on the last climb, so stay tuned. Now, the breakaway at 7, they go over the climb together. We see EF Education. Hugh Carthy there, he's a little grumpy, and he's going to sit at the back because he was dropped going over the summit of the climb, chases onto the back of the group, and sits back there for a bit longer than you would necessarily want if the break wants to get maximum time on the peloton chasing behind. So, again, Marc Solaire's little tactics at the beginning of the climb looking like he had bad legs and then sprinting for the KOM has upset some of the chemistry here in the group. And that's where Marc Solaire seems to always be doing something wrong in the bike race, except for showing up with fabulous legs. He's always got good legs. He's always putting on a show, but it always seems to be the wrong thing. Now, through the valley with 25 kilometers to go, Bruno Armai and Mark Donovan, they're going to go up the road and leave the breakaway companions. That group of 5 from behind are all going to get caught. So Marc Solaire's work being in the break accounted really for nothing. They didn't put big pressure on AG2R, who set a steady tempo throughout the day. I'm telling you, AG2R looked spectacular. The pace was never that hard back there. You can tell from the group of the size of the peloton. So AG2R still have a real complement of teammates up there to help defend the race leaders of Ben O'Connor when the climb starts with 13 kilometers to go. When the 2 breakaway companions get to the start of the climb, right away, Mark Donovan will drop off of Bruno's wheel, and the FDJ rider is solo, trying to get as much time and any kind of shot at winning today's stage. Now, we all know sitting on the couch is probably not going to happen. It's only 30 seconds, but I got to mention him on the butterfly effect because he is having a big boy ride up here for FDJ. Behind when the climb starts, it's Quick Step on the front. Now, this was one of the first mistakes here from AG2R. You see him riding, kind of trying to do a drag race with Quick Step. At this point in time, Ben O'Connor, your team has done everything perfect. Let your rider slot in and get a little bit of rest right before the climb starts to get really hard. I know with Quick Step pulling at the front, you want to start right at the front, but just slot behind and bring whatever teammate you think can climb the longest up this last 13 kilometers. Let him slot in, get a little bit of rest instead of having a drag race up there with Quick Step. Your team job is done. This climb, it's not so crucial coming into this turn, so it's easier to save AG2R, whichever teammate you have with any kind of legs left, to just have the whole team slot in there and save those legs. When the climb starts to get stiffer and with the gradient starts to go up, it's Archaic Samsic on the front for Nairo Quintana. We have Winner Anacana on the front and Gilbert that's riding second wheel. Nairo Quintana's third. And then he does exactly what I hate to see race leaders of their team do. He slots off to the right. We can see it in the photo. He's far right there of the peloton and then slots way back. We see that all the time. And I've been waiting for this day to point it out, because when you see Nairo Quintana slot all the way to the right, what he wants to do is drop back so he can keep an eye on all his companions. The problem is, what the MO for Archaic Samsic should be right at this point in time when the climb has just started and we're in a really steep pitch of the climb, they want full gas, 100% with Winner Anacana pulling and then Gisbert pulling second, maximum for Nairo Quintana to soften up the legs on everybody that's racing for GC here. Instead, when Nairo Quintana drops back, it's AG2R that opens up the gap to Ben O'Connor, who's on the wheel of Gisbert, Elie Gisbert's wheel there, and the gap opens up to the peloton of GC favorites. Elie Gisbert, Archaic Samsic, he'll look over his right shoulder, he'll realize what just happened. This would have never happened if Nairo Quintana had just stayed on Gisbert's wheel. The whole GC favorites would have had to follow, and Elie Gisbert could have continued the ride full gas. Instead, he has to let off the gas. Now, here's the big epic mistake here from Ben O'Connor. What were you thinking, Ben O'Connor, with 12.5 kilometers still to go? You're going to go solo. The only reason it worked yesterday is because you were not looked upon as the big favorite with form, and then the tactics back there allowed that 10 seconds, 15 seconds that he had on yesterday's stage 3, and allowed it to stay out there and for him to win the stage by 6 seconds. Now at 12.5 kilometers to go, while wearing the late race leader's jersey and all of your teammates falling off the back of the GC favorite group back there, he's trying to go solo. That's never going to work, Ben, and that was a catastrophic mistake. The next big mistake happens when we see Carapaz try to bridge the gap. Carapaz has got some company with Higuita and George Bennett back there from UAE Team Emirates. At this point in time, all those guys could have just left Ben O'Connor out there for a little bit longer, put one of your super domestiques on the front, and let Ben's legs just blow up and catch him 500 meters, 1.5K later, and then race leaders out of the race for good. Instead, they panicked. Everyone jumped across with Higuita, Carapaz, and George Bennett. The next attack comes from George Bennett, UAE Team Emirates. He goes up the road. This was another mistake from Ineos. Remember, they have GC favorites here, and they got guys that can win the stage. They have Carlos Rodriguez, who could easily follow a move like this. And, of course, they have Jonathan Castroviejo, who could follow the move, sit on George Bennett, win the stage, or tactically just sit there and slow the pace down of George Bennett. Instead, George Bennett's going solo, UAE Team Emirates, and Ineos missed the move back there. That'll put the Team Ineos on the front with Jonathan Castroviejo, followed by Carlos Rodriguez and Carapaz further back in the peloton. Now, up front, it's George Bennett, and he bridges up to Bruno Armai, the FDJ rider. And to my disbelief, Bruno Armai is latched onto the back wheel of George Bennett, and George can't get rid of him. When you look at the front group, I thought maybe George wasn't climbing so good. But when you look at the back group, it's strung out, single file line. So clearly George has some pressure on the pedals. And Bruno Armai is doing a fantastic job here representing FDJ on the television screen. Behind with Jonathan Castroviejo pulling, he'll do a solid job. And then at 6.3 kilometers to go, I have to point this out because this is absolutely comical. It's Diego Camargo back there at 6.3 kilometers to go. He's 20 places back in the group of GC favorites, and that group's probably 30 guys strong. Single file strung out in the gutter, and he's 20 guys back at 6.3 kilometers. He'll throw in a massive attack from 20 places back of Jonathan Castroviejo, Ineos on the front. By 100 meters later, he's at 10 places back from Jonathan Castroviejo. 100 meters after that, he is on the front getting ready to go solo and put in a massive attack here against the GC favorites. 100 meters after that, he's solo up the road trying to catch George Bennett. And then 100 meters later, guess what? He's back in the group with Ineos. Guys, this was a comical air here to be attacking when it's single file line in your 20th spot back. Diego, what were you thinking? You are the biggest knucklehead on today's stage 4 here of Catalunya. Now, Jonathan Castroviejo, he's still riding the front. He was riding the front for 3 kilometers before that attack at least. With 4 kilometers to go, he'll finally fall off the front, and then it's Carlos Rodriguez Ineos that takes up the reins for his team leader, Richard Carapaz. He'll drill it hard, and then with 3.5 kilometers to go, we'll see George Bennett, UAE Team Emirates. He's caught and wrapped back up. Now everything is status quo, and it's all together with the GC favorites. And we'll see Movistar's Ivan Sosa come out the back. They already lost Alejandro Valverde early in this climb, so Movistar are having a terrible Catalunya in terms of GC and stage race victories here at Catalunya. There's going to be some more action, though, with the GC favorites, as it's Carapaz and Higuita that throw in the next attack. These two guys were trying to work well together, but you could tell Higuita was sitting on more Carapaz, and Carapaz was doing bigger pulls until about 2.5 kilometers to go, when it's Almeida that gets on the front and starts drilling. Back there with Almeida, we have a solid group with Ben O'Connor, who's managed to stay with the front group. Nairo Quintana's there. And then there's a third group behind, chasing with Carlos Rodriguez and a host of other GC favorites. Those 3 groups will come back together briefly. Almeida, who will stay on the front and just start drilling it. And then we'll see the group split. And then it's Ben O'Connor at about 1.7 kilometers to go. We're going to see Ben O'Connor start opening up the gap. He does the look over his shoulder to see if there's any help coming from behind. But Ben O'Connor, there's no help. Perhaps Ben, at 12.5 kilometers to go, you probably shouldn't have been trying to go solo on this climb that's going to summit today. And at 1.7 kilometers to go, I gotta ask myself, how much energy would you still have left if you didn't throw in a maximum effort trying to go solo at the bottom of the climb? Absolutely ridiculous, and a big knucklehead move there from Ben O'Connor, whose AG2R teammates were fabulous all the way to the start of this climb. Now things start getting really exciting. It's Almeida on the front. He's got Carapaz, Higuita, and Nairo Quintana for company. And Almeida must have some stellar form because he has been on the front the final part of this summit climb from about 2.5 kilometers. He's still on the front drilling it. Then we'll see Higuita throw in attack. That'll get brought back. Nairo Quintana will throw in attack. And it's Almeida doing most of the work back there, bringing everybody back. 700 meters. Richard Carapaz is coming off the wheel, the Ineos leader. He doesn't have the legs to stay with the three up front, as Almeida is still on the front, setting a blistering pace. Now at about 6'4", 500 meters to go. Almeida's always on the front doing an unbelievable job, but I started asking myself, how much form can this kid have? He's been on the front since 2.5 kilometers to go. When he starts accelerating extremely hard at 400 meters to go, that's when we start seeing him looking over his shoulder, left, right, multiple times, all the way to 200 kilometers to go. Almeida, all I'm thinking at this point in time, if you're going 100%, just stay on the pedals and drill it all the way to the line. There's no reason to look back. If you're going to look back, see everyone's on your wheel, and then still keep going 100%. If you're doing 100%, just do 100%. Whatever happens, happens, my man Almeida, because coming up with 75 meters to go, there's a right turn, and then the road's going to get what looks like could be a little slippery. It's still paved after the corner with 75 meters to go, but it looks like it's a little bit of gravel and slippery. With Almeida on the front, Nairo Quintana knows he wants to go into this 75 meter to the finish in front with that right turn coming. He'll go up and push Almeida basically into the fencing. Almeida and him will bump. In my belief right now, by the rules, Nairo Quintana should have been regulated at this moment for coming over on Almeida. Clearly with 90 meters, 80 meters, as we're going in the 75 meter turn, that at that point in time, Nairo never had the clear lane open over Almeida on the right side. Instead, he comes over on Almeida anyways. They bump elbows. You can see when they come out of the turn, it's Nairo Quintana in first. Almeida is in second, Higuita's third. With that lead from Nairo Quintana, he's punching hard on the pedals, but Almeida's got fabulous form. He's been on the front basically from 2.5 kilometers to go all the way to 75 meters to go, 60 meters to go, 50 meters, he's back in the front. And then at the line, he wins today's Stage 4 summit finish at Volta a Catalunya with Nairo Quintana second, Higuita third. Wout Poels, who we didn't see much throughout the climb today, he was always quietly sitting back there. He'll finish fourth on the stage with a little bit of gap. The GC classification, though, will go to Nairo Quintana because he finished two places in front of Almeida on yesterday's Stage 3. And of course, Almeida is only one place in front of him on today's Stage 4. With time bonuses given, they're even on time. Nairo Quintana's got the lead, though, like I said, and expect big things in the stages to come, because now the GC favorites, Nairo Quintana and of course Almeida, they have to fight for all these sprint finishes that'll come on these following stages. Even if a break gets up the road and there's 20, 30 guys up the road in a breakaway, they still have to sprint to find out who can stay in front of each other and decide who will win here at Volta a Catalunya. I had the same predicament back when I raced here and I was battling against Dan Martin trying to get on the podium. Him and I were tied and we were always sprinting against each other, even for 50th place in the peloton. So expect some exciting finishes throughout the next few stages here at Catalunya, because regardless of what happens with the breakaway going away and stealing a stage, these two guys, first and second on the general classification, they're going to have to sprint it out on all the upcoming stages. I believe Almeida should be in the race leader's jersey if it comes down to sprint position, because I don't see Nairo Quintana being able to hold off Almeida when we come into these big sprint finishes on the last stage and of course the stages to come before that. Was a good day of racing. The tactics weren't quite exactly how I liked it, but I always think that makes for fabulous viewing. Hope you guys like my take here today on the butterfly effect. Like and subscribe because we got more stages coming here at Volta a Catalunya, and I'll see you guys real soon.